Good morning, Mark.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Let's just give people a couple of minutes to come in. Trying to find the. How was the CSA sync up yesterday? Did you attend it?
It was small.
All right.
Pretty much Mark and I and Alex.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We've got Mark and I just said we'll take the document we're writing on the introduction and go work on it together for a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I do not have the bandwidth for that document, and I don't think I'm needed for that.
And things are a little chaotic at the moment. We lost one of our product managers, so I'm doing their job as well as my job at the moment.
Oh, gee. Well, yeah, you're a relatively small company, so small changes can make big waves.
They can indeed.
Hello. Hi, guys.
Hi, Nicola.
Oh,
For
hi.
once, I'm in the same time zone as you, I guess, right? I'm
Oh.
in Palo Alto, so
Oh, you
for me,
are?
it's not an evening meeting; it's a morning meeting.
Welcome to our neck of the woods.
Thank you.
I'll
Very
be in
cool.
Palo Alto later today.
How do you like California?
It's yeah. What can I say? It's very likable, to put it mildly. It's very nice.
Don't confuse tourism with immigration.
Yeah, exactly. It's I've been doing a lot of hiking over the weekend. It's great, and of course, meeting a lot of great people. So
For sure.
what can I say? It's a great place to be.
Yeah.
So how a lot of travel and so on. So I didn't manage to keep up with everything. How has it gone with the TAC? I've seen the emails like
Good. So we have these like 3 documents that are ready for TAC approval. So one of them had to go through the attestation SIG because it was verifier governance, and there were a couple of rounds of feedback over the last few months. Now we finally got to a point where they had no more comments. So now 3 documents, so confidential payload governance, payload upgrade governance, and verifier governance are all going to get approved and published by the consortium as official documents.
I think Mark froze, or Mark,
Did
I think I lost you. Something happened.
Oh,
There was a
can
glitch.
you?
Mark didn't freeze on this side.
Yeah.
Yeah, it tells me my internet connection is unstable. I went with T-Mobile and it's not good. Well, not as stable. I guess you get what you pay for. Anyway, what was I gonna say? So, where did you lose me?
You said that the 3 documents are ready to be published by the consortium.
Yes, so verifier went through attestation SIG, but eventually got to a point where they don't have any comments either. So now we went and converted the documents, I think Hightower did, to markup format, and the consortium is going to be, the TAC is going to be looking at them on Thursday. And then, we're done with them. In fact, now I want to make a change to confidential payload governance, specifically around the conversation we had yesterday in the trustworthy workload identity SIG, where I realized that if you don't handle sealing to the platform correctly, you are going to introduce a security vulnerability. And it really has to do with the fact that you need to attest configuration as well as code. But when you seal to the platform, you seal to the binary measurements of the code, not to the configuration. So there needs to be a software layer patch to basically compare the configuration the workload is running under currently with the configuration that was used for attestation. And only then can you do can you allow the sealed the unsealed data to proceed. Otherwise, you need to log an error.
A software patch, and so a software patch
As in, like,
to.
you need to do some additional things in software that you cannot, that the hardware cannot handle. So
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, it will not be a pure hardware play ever. Of course, you could do a lot of things with GPM, extend some measurements.
not
and
really,
any
not
other
on a,
files.
not when you have multiple workloads and right, and you don't kind of know what kind of TPM you have. Maybe it's a hardware TPM, so it's just going to be slow, right? So I don't want to rely on the TPM.
Okay, so you didn't want to go the
So I want
TPM
to,
way.
yeah. So once the TAC approves, the patterns, we're just going to do a pull request and specify this additional thing. So it's fine. It's not urgent, but it will be done. So anyway, so oh, hi Alec, welcome.
Hey, good morning.
All right. So what I wanted to do today is, well, a couple of things. First, we really need to get our meeting minutes in order. So every other SIG has sort of a document in a standard format that gets updated every week. We have been sloppy with that. In fact, it's some time ago, Alec was our scribe, and things were good, but that is no longer the case, and we don't have any history of what has been discussed in these meetings. As a result, we need to need to do better. So I will probably, after today, I'm going to create a template for us and start putting information in and store it in our Google Drive. Just got to do it. Or if somebody else wants to volunteer, please take this off my hands. God knows I have enough. All right. So if there are no other topics, I would like to spend today on reverse proxy governance. I used to call it break and inspect, and then I actually went and asked around, like all the areas where we have reverse proxies, and they do so much more than break and inspect. So I wanted to, that's why I renamed it. But let me share my screen. And by the way, if you have a topic of your own, we can preempt this discussion and discuss yours, or you can leave it until the end of this meeting. But yeah, that's, I'm basically assuming that this is the only thing on the agenda for today. So I just want to make sure you're seeing my screen.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a big change in it's kind of changing this whole break and expect and all the acronyms. So if let me do this other thing I always do. I'm gonna stick the link to the document into the chat. And as usual, if you don't have access, request access. I get a notification right away, and I'll be able to grant you access right away.
By the way, I'd like to say that I think reverse proxy also has a better sound to it than break and inspect. Has this quite negative connotation.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, that's also what they do.
Yeah, I know, but reverse proxy sounds different.
Yeah, I
Definitely
agree
better
with you.
marketing. Definitely
Yeah.
better marketing.
By the way, for those of you who don't know, Michael Guzman is a colleague of mine from JP Morgan Chase, focused on data protection. So, Michael, you might want to introduce yourself or lurk in the shadows. It's up to you.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I can do that real quick. So, hi everyone. My name is Mike Guzman. I work with Mark Novak, and I'm trying to push forward the adoption of confidential computing patterns from some of our SaaS providers operating in the cloud. So, I've met with Steve quite often around potential use cases that Anjuna could possibly help with, but mainly in the SaaS and PaaS environment, trying to get them to push forward more competence compute offerings to secure our data while it's in process and memory. So I'm a big proponent of it.
Fantastic. So,
Yes,
yeah,
we need more of you, more people like you in many other companies.
I'm trying.
Michael is a force of nature. So
yeah, I'm trying.
That's good.
I'm a former QSA, so I'm actually trying putting the final touches on a blog post I'm going to pass around where I believe that computational computing can help reduce the scope of PCI DSS assessments, actually audits are not assessments, audits, which would obviously be a game changer for a lot of companies because that's one of their biggest expenses when it comes to a PCI audit is the scope, all the systems that are in scope.
Alrighty, so if you just do me a favor, let's go through and to begin with, just accept whatever changes or feel free to propose changes or challenge my wording. I just want to get the document to a place where there aren't as many changes in it, and then we can talk about what may be missing from the document. So I went the very similar route to the verifier pattern as I'm defining roles and assets. And again, some of it is just changing the wording away from break and inspect. So let's for like again the context. Let's just focus on that paragraph for a moment. Let me know if it's okay to change to accept the changes I made.
I read this before, and I think especially now with this change to reverse proxy governance, I wonder if we should have this, statement about lawful intercept, because this is indeed outside of the scope of the document, and it could be just moved to a footnote because it's not. I mean, it's relevant, but it's not relevant. It removes the focus from the core topic. Like,
That may very well be. I'm open to that. I just wanted to, because here we're talking about trust relationships.
Yeah.
Right. And I cannot talk about trust relationships without this footnote.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it should be here, but I don't think describing what this is not about should be in the main body of the text. I think we should just focus like on what this is about. But this is just my opinion.
Okay, so
because
if we were to do that and accept this change, and then I can say, let me just change that.
so I'd love,
Okay,
I'd
so
rather
then
use
I
this.
can take this and move it into the footnote.
Yeah,
Would
exactly.
that make you more comfortable? Okay.
Yeah, that would, and potentially that would leave a bit more real estate to add more context, maybe another sentence if needed. I think we'll evolve as the document evolves. We'll see a need for that.
Okay, the only thing I need to change is the size of the font. This is 10. All
Then
right, fair
we
enough.
can as well just shorten it so that we don't need that however and so on. So that could be just a statement like,
Okay.
this is not lawful interception. This lawful interception does other things, and that's it. And that could just stay in the footnote there.
Yep. Well, should we say anything about the trust relationship?
Yes, because of course this has a major effect on the trust relationship. It
By
introduces a
their
whole
very nature, reverse proxies. Well, then I can take this sentence right here, it already talks about it. So if I were to do that, then our context is
Yeah, I think that's much better now.
all right, fair enough. All right, so the problem, the challenge, so that's what we're talking about. Now, the challenge is to introduce them, and there could be more than one. That's another sort of fact of life, is they usually go in series onto different things. So you have expectations of confidentiality, you also have expectations of integrity, and because the reverse proxy can modify the traffic in some cases, I'm adding that. Okay, fair enough?
Yep.
All right, so I'm just gonna go accept that. Okay. So let's look over roles. I think it's just was a bulk accept. I apologize, I didn't intend to, but all of this text is new. Let me know if you have any comments on everything up until the end of the page.
Hey, Mark, getting back to
Yeah.
the question about lawful intercept, in the context of this discussion, is there anything different about lawful intercept other than the fact that the reason you're putting some sort of an eavesdrop mechanism on the reverse proxy is because a government entity asked you to do it? Technically, it's the same thing, right? Or do you see an important difference?
The important difference is, you know, reverse proxy is there. You may not know that lawful intercept is there.
Right.
Alec, you have that you had your arm up. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the reason I raised my hand is during the earlier discussion, I just was waiting for it to get recognized. That I guess what I would say is for this document, if there's a difference in terms of confidential computing protections that are required to prevent lawful intercept versus just corporate
I'm
intercept.
skirting all of this by saying it's outside the scope. I do not want to get into it. I want to mention it, but I want to basically get away from it as quickly as possible.
Right, I'm arguing for not even mentioning it. And unless the only reason I could see to mention it is if there were some technical difference in the attestation, for example, to prevent a blind subpoena versus some other form of intercept.
Well, if I don't mention it, people will ask. And
Mhm.
again, I want to basically say, I really, this is not an area I want to get into.
So you
out of,
got it. I see what
it's much better to say, we recognize that it's a possibility. We're not discussing it.
yeah, then to not discuss it and invite the question. Makes sense.
Correct, yes.
and in this vein, I would also suggest reformulating again even the footnote, and we could just say have this like reverse proxies are deployed with full knowledge, and then say that this is different from lawful intercept and lawful intercept is outside of the scope. That's it. So this resets the highlights. So we highlight that they're deployed with full knowledge. I think this is important. And then this is different from lawful intercept, and we're not going to talk about lawful intercept.
I don't know how it's different. I don't know how it's different, but I'll agree to what you guys are saying.
Yeah. In my experience, on the other side of the pond as well, well, it's different also, like they're not documented and the trust relationships are different.
If I put in a squid server and I'm working for the CIA, how's that different than putting in a squid server if I'm working for JPMC?
You will have to probably document if you're working for JPMC.
If we deploy our own, then it's with our full knowledge, trust, and consent, and it's.
If I'm a rogue JPMC employee, how is it different?
Well, you'll be caught by controls, hopefully.
Well, but if you're not caught by controls, how is it different?
Well, then we have a major regulatory problem on our hands.
Right, but let's just move on. All I'm trying to say is a rogue insider and a CIA agent are doing the exact same thing using the same technologies. They're just wearing a different employee ID badge. And the protections that we need to put in place would be identical, regardless of either of those two use cases. That's the only point I'm trying to make.
This is exactly the kind of thing I do not want to be talking about in this document, because it gets us away from, only dealing with things we can do with full knowledge, consent, and controls.
I agree. We shouldn't be talking about it. You're talking about it so that you don't have to talk about it.
Correct. That's right. I mentioned it once. I want to basically skirt the issue completely.
Yep, got it. Let's move on.
All right. So let's talk through this table. Any comments on this, on these 4 rows? This is very close to how the verifier pattern is worded. It's effectively copy and paste with a few edits.
Yeah, I was trying to think through, is there any other roles that need to be in there? And I can't think of any at the moment.
Are there any on the next page? No. Well, again, this mirrors the verifier pattern.
Yeah.
Right. So, and if you think of any, we can add them later.
I'm not sure BHO is introduced, the acronym. Well, rather, I'm sure it's not.
Our PHO is right here.
RPHO, but BHO, so in footnote 2, we refer
That
to
meant that this is because that's because it means PRPHO.
okay. That's
The
good.
the copy and replace was not complete.
Hmm.
It used to be the break and inspect hardware owner and became
Right. Yeah. Now it makes sense. Yeah.
All right, next page. There are assets. Let's just go over that. I would combine RPS software and RPS configuration. I don't really see a need to separate them. Would you be okay with me making that change?
Yeah. I mean, well, we just talked about configuration in the very beginning of this meeting.
Well, either I combine this with that, or I introduce RPT configuration separately. Either one is fine.
Yeah. I'm always erring on the side of having configuration explicit because people often forget about the importance of configuration and they just focus on software. But that's maybe my personal.
No, that's I'm with you. I'm also the one who always harps about configuration and not forgetting, like testing it, etc.
Do they also modify or oh, sorry, are we moving? I know we're still on the table. I don't have any other comments about the table.
No, the only thing here that I want to draw attention to is there's configuration and their policies.
Yeah,
Right.
that makes sense.
Right, and they are in fact different because they in fact be different administrators in charge of both.
Absolutely, I fully agree.
Okay. Then we're moving to the forces section. So forces, as a reminder in the patterns language, are things that make solving the problem difficult.
The one thing I'll say about that forces section is you talk about decrypting the data for inspection may expose it to vulnerabilities or unauthorized access. I think the unauthorized access bit is key because in the case of reverse proxy that's operated by JPMC in accord with JPMC policies, that's not that's orthogonal to confidential computing because that's authorized access. I think what's required there, or what you're hinting at, but not saying it explicitly, is if you do that reverse proxy on a non-confidential environment, then you're raising the risk that unauthorized access might occur. But I think
So
that
I can see why you would read it this way. Let me give you my thinking on why I put it in here. So if you read further below, there may be data that is encrypted at the application layer between the client and the server, not at the transport layer. And in that case, the reverse proxy would still not have access to it. And so we're basically saying, because we're worried about exposing some data at the reverse proxy even, right? So this is where we go into full, and maybe I need to, here I kept the break and inspect, and there may be some wording that needs to change, but basically full and partial. Full is where everything is at the transport layer, or or maybe a reverse proxy has access to application layer keys. And partial means there are some stuff that the reverse proxy can do, maybe add headers, maybe filter some information, etc. But there are some that are application layer encrypted all the way to the backend and will not have it. And again, this is a proposed solution. This is not necessarily our final, but this is why the wording here is as you see it.
Got it.
Now,
Thanks. So let me just make sure I understood you right. What you're suggesting is some sort of non-envelope encryption scheme where the application can put data in an envelope that cannot be decrypted at the TLS termination point that the reverse proxy manages.
correct. So it's no longer we're no longer transport level. So basically, opening up transport level encryption is not going to help.
Got it.
Which is by design. Yes.
Oh, hey, my camera finally started working. Awesome. Yep. Awesome.
Yay.
Yeah.
We're as beautiful as ever. All right.
In the same sentence, so decrypting data for inspection may expose it to vulnerabilities. Yes, but what vulnerabilities do we mean in the inspection software? Wouldn't it be easier to just say that would break its confidentiality? Because the statement that it exposes it to vulnerabilities is not really straightforward. From my point of view.
So you basically, I hear now two people say that we do not want to talk about vulnerabilities here. Well, but here's the thing. If your reverse proxy isn't properly governed and it has access to your traffic, it can, in fact, introduce vulnerabilities into your flow.
So, well, here
this is
we're
why
talking
we're
about...
governing it. This is why we're governing it. This is why we care that it's not just a willy-nilly thing.
I agree with you, Mark, but you're introducing all these concepts all at once. Let's focus on unauthorized access in the first paragraph, and then maybe introduce the concept of vulnerabilities in the later. Because the vulnerabilities, what do? Well, they raise the risk of unauthorized access. So maybe just strike that word and keep it.
Well, how about instead of right? So maybe this paragraph is a bit of an overload, and we can break it into bullet points.
I kind of like that idea, especially, I mean, I'm struggling with internalizing it because there's so much in here, and I needed your words to get it into my head. So
same here.
We could say basically confidentiality, integrity, right? Or we can say
rather than confidentiality, let's say unauthorized access and integrity.
Well, unauthorized access can mean both.
Well, I'm just trying to stick to the CCC terminology documentation, and what we talk about is unauthorized access. How is introducing malicious traffic different than unauthorized modification?
Well,
I'm just pressing to simplify, fewer words.
So, okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So how do we phrase it now?
I'd love it. Reverse proxies typically decrypt and modify traffic between the client and the server, period. This conflicts with the core principles of confidential computing, which guarantee confidentiality and integrity, period.
Okay, so period here, and then typically decrypt. Let's simplify it all. and modify traffic in the client and the server. This conflicts with the corporate confidential integrity of data must be
Yep.
at all times. Okay, how about the following sentence?
Here, what you're trying to say is the environments on which the decrypting takes place may be subject to vulnerabilities. If the environments on which the decrypting takes place have vulnerabilities, then it raises the risks even further. I think that's
So
what
look, I think the sentence can be removed. I think it doesn't add any value.
I agree.
Yeah.
Done.
Another thing,
Okay.
if you would need that sentence, you'd need another one about integrity.
Yeah.
Which
Right.
was
So,
missing.
but this sentence may be good to keep. Although it's again, it kind of duplicates what was said already here in the context where we talk about it's part of the trust relationship. So we don't need to say that again either. Or we can keep it.
I like-
think.
Well, sorry,
Sorry.
go ahead.
I would keep it. I would keep it because it's well, we might eventually want to expand. Let's see how the document evolves. But you know, the context, that's just a brief introduction. And here this is
it a layer of trust? It's not really a layer of trust. That's where I say another participant into the trust relationship.
yeah, at the very least, another one.
I'm just keeping my editor hat on. The word thus is just padding. It's not needed.
The word what?
Thus. I'll remove it. Boom.
Okay, fair enough. Add another participant in something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit of a convoluted, the second part. Maybe
We can remove the
somehow-
sentence too.
Yep. I don't think we're not
Yeah.
trying to justify why we have reverse proxies.
Yeah, so because this one is about all security, this is just security and trust concerns. That's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty clean now.
Yeah. So the next one is regulatory and compliance. So I'm gonna oops, hold on. I'm going to probably go and sort of doing all this. I'm gonna use heading 2. Security and trust concerns, regulatory and compliance. So let's make that also heading 2. All right, so we got that. All right. And whether we keep it or not, again, I'm just going to go change the format. So, okay, I want comments on this section right now.
I'm looking at the word justification and thinking, is this the right word? I see what you mean.
What do you mean? Where do you see it? Sorry.
So, in this paragraph about regulatory and compliance. And well, I lost it now. Things moved. Yeah. So about if personal or sensitive data are decrypted for inspection, compliance with data protection regulations like GDPR or HIPAA must be ensured, which might require additional security measures or justifications for the decryption process. So I wonder if justification is the right term here. I kind of get it, but again, justification is maybe that doesn't reflect clearly the what is actually requirement. Maybe
Maybe just we can
clarifications.
kill the sentence.
Or just take out
There you go. Yes.
just take out or justifications.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Well,
Why does it like doesn't it like decrypted here? Jesus Christ, no. Okay.
Can I say regulated rather than personal or sensitive? You're talking about regulatory and compliance, and then you switch to personal and sensitive. Sensitive is, subjective. I just like if regulated data are decrypted for inspection, compliance with data protection regulations must be ensured.
I don't know. I've never heard an expression regulated data, Michael. Have you?
Yeah, absolutely. So regulated data would be anything that's in scope for any kind of external regulatory assessment or audit. So
Good.
like PCI data is regulated data.
Okay, excellent. So
okay.
let's just do that.
That's good. And then we skip naming specific regulations because it's bound to be incomplete.
Well, this is a descriptive section, right? This is not normative. Like once we get into solution, then we'll get into normative.
Yeah.
Because we'll say like capital must, capital should. This is setting it up. So in this in the forces section, it's perfectly fine to make references to, for example, this, for example, that. But
Yeah,
once we get into
One thing I would change though is since you're referencing GDPR and HIPAA, I would say data privacy regulations, because that's what they actually care about. They wouldn't call it regulations. They would call it or they wouldn't call it protection. They would call it privacy.
So we could then
So they
say
would nitpick
the
it.
data protection regulations around privacy.
If you wanted to keep protection, you would quote either FedRAMP or PCI. But for those two, you would say privacy.
So my concern is like I really like that we moved from personal and sensitive data, because very often like we think personal data, GDPR, HIPAA, and so on. But now we're broadening this to regulated data, which can be many things, and we still refer to privacy regulations. And there's this kind of disconnect that I see. It would be good to have an equally broad I don't know, example or reference to regulation in the second part of the sentence. Do you see what I mean?
Why don't you propose a change?
It's not easy because I don't know what could be as comprehensive.
I like examples. I like saying data protection regulations, open parent, E period, G period, comma space, GDPR, CRA, HIPAA, PCI, have a
That
list,
could be.
have
Yeah.
a laundry list that maybe is a little bit wider that covers both privacy and covers other aspects of data as well.
So that we don't only focus on privacy regulations.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. We don't want to overfocus so that Michael's like, you guys are only talking about privacy concerns here. We want to talk about the whole gamut.
Why does it got to be Michael, man?
Because you know regulations here.
People like me, yeah. Those jerks.
You made a good point. I mean, we picked two regulatory frameworks that only focused on one thing. We need to cast a wider net, I think is what Nikolai was trying to say.
Yeah, exactly.
Agreed,
Exactly.
100%.
Otherwise, in the eyes of the reader might not might read regulated data, fine. And then when the reader sees GDPR and HIPAA, like, oh, okay, they're talking about privacy.
Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to say open for hen, E period, G period, comma, space, GDPR, HIPAA. What else we got? Think of some regulations. Come on, toss them out there, especially because we want to go.
PCI DSS.
There you go.
PCI DSS,
Yeah.
yeah.
PCI DSS, FedRAMP would be another one. The FFIEC.
Let's
Would be a
try
big
to get
one.
something. So we got GDPR. Let's get one from Singapore if we can. I'm just trying to go.
Oh, MAS, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, actually specifically calls out confidential computing as a use case.
What was that? MA
MAS, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, that's their big regulatory.
There you go. That's good enough. Maybe good enough.
I think so,
Let's-
yeah, because the other people like me oftentimes look to say, hey, wait a minute, I'm the SME in this. How dare you mention my right? So I think it's good that we keep it concise.
You know what we
without
can
going
do
into
is
their
we can
space.
add hyperlinks to the actual like sites or documents here. So if somebody is wondering what MAS is, you know, they can, you know, go find a hyperlink, because here down below we have a references section. So we reference whatever we need.
Yeah, and I think we have a good portion of these called out in the document we authored, Mark.
Yeah, I'm just saying this is a
Yeah.
standalone document.
Yeah, I'm saying you could pull from there to inform this document. We could use that information. Yep.
But now I like it way more. Now the reader will think like, oh, all these regulations and others. So not just personal or privacy regulations. This is good.
All right, so let me accept the changes and let's do another read. So make sure it all fits together, okay? Wait, this was changed. Where?
You had subject to regulatory.
How about say each reverse proxy adds another participant?
Each. What if it's the same participant for several reverse proxy?
You jumped up to the earlier paragraph there.
Yeah, I'm just up here.
Yeah, that's fine. I just.
Okay. So let's coming back here. I just want to accept changes. It's hard. Like once we have so many changes, it's hard to know what the hell is the final version saying.
It feels
Okay.
like we're just taking a collective breath in. What did we end up with on the paper? And let's go at it again.
That's right. That's right. Should we talk about modification? Because here we talk about inspection. Are there ever regulatory reasons to modify data?
Yeah, if somebody's trying to serve up kitty porn, you need to delete that stuff because of regulatory.
Yeah, or maybe blinding payment information.
Yeah,
So that would
absolutely.
be just real quick, the kiddie point thing, that would be an example of a statutory regulation, not a regulatory. So regulatory has to do with industry. Statutory has to do with like state and government.
So we should say
Statutory. I'm just saying regulatory and statutory.
Yeah.
there you
But
go.
yeah,
Say legal rather than statutory. I think it's a cheaper word.
which one?
And rather than say statutory, can we just use the word legal? I think it's within the reach of more people.
Sure.
I don't know what the difference between regulatory and legal is. Regulations are laws, effectively.
Michael pointed it out a second ago. I get it. What regulations come from non-legal entities. For example, not the confidential, the Cloud Security Alliance. And it comes from a different source of authority.
I see. Okay, that's fair enough.
I like it.
Um,
You could say inspected or modified.
and modified. Or okay.
I don't think
What
so.
about this?
So I don't
Yeah,
think
go
the
ahead.
yeah, just real quick, not to nitpick it. I'm fine with what the group goes with, but just legal would indicate that it could be two private entities suing each other because they had a legal obligation to do X, and confidential computing was the means in which they were going to do X. Statutory is specifically a term reserved for governmental regulations or laws that are passed by governmental entities in order to affect something. So that's why you would use that term, those two terms differently. If you're
So
trying
I
to,
would then say regulatory, statutory, and contractual.
sure, that would probably be a better way. But I understand we're not trying to throw every use case possible in here as well,
What
right?
we frequently
Yeah,
mention,
right.
we frequently
Right.
mention all three in other documents.
That's good. I like that. That actually expanded my mind a little bit. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that's good. Should we add a little footnote for statutory? Otherwise, as Alec mentioned, I think many people will stumble upon it. Like, what is statutory? What do
Yep.
they mean here?
No, I can add a footnote. What would you say in the footnote?
Well, I think Michael is the expert here.
Can we say legal / statutory?
I would probably use the abbreviated definitions for each one. And so I can send those to you, Mark.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful because there is so much confusion about this, and these words are used very carelessly. And I would really appreciate a bit of nuance.
It's completely out of a place of ignorance for me. I just didn't know the definition of those terms. I mean, so that's why we need legal folks looking at these now.
And
Oh,
so Michael,
100%.
you
Yeah, I don't get paid enough to be
feel
legal.
free to take a pen to this document too, and just go
Yeah.
add whatever content you want.
Okay.
Right? You cannot do it from VDI, but you will be able to do it from
No,
your
that's why I
personal
came home to work today,
Yeah,
because I can't
excellent.
get.
So yeah, you by all means, go ahead and make the edits that are more
Let me get-
appropriate.
Yep.
Do we need the section on balancing security and privacy?
Just one more last thing on the previous one.
Yeah.
When we say must be insured, this like passive voice always raises question like, okay, so who is it, like must be insured by what or by whom? Should we try to address this, or somebody will
Well, in the
insure it?
solution section, we should say who needs to do what.
Okay, so here we just leave it as passive voice, like to
I
highlight
would,
that it must
yeah.
be insured.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
You don't
I think the reverse proxy must ensure.
Well, the reverse proxy itself doesn't ensure anything. You govern it to ensure it.
The owners of the reverse proxy must ensure.
The roles. So again, if you want to say who must do what, then to the solution section, and then that's why we have assets, and we have roles.
Makes sense. Yep.
Yeah. This makes sense. Okay, then we can keep it as passive voice. So where were we? Yes.
Well,
next
balancing
one.
security privacy. I wanted comments on whether the section belongs, if we want to keep it, delete it, reword it.
You can probably, maybe. I mean, I like the last statement. The goal is to minimize the risk of exposing regulated data or sensitive data to unauthorized individuals. And that kind of leads into, okay, so now we need to put the reverse proxy in a trusted execution environment, I guess is where we're heading here. I haven't read ahead. But yeah, I agree that the first bit about balancing, that's,
Yeah.
people who are reading this document, who have found this document and are interested, kind of understand that already.
Yeah.
Now, the solution section is weak. It's not a full, like for instance, it doesn't even mention trust execution environments or anything like this, right? So, it probably needs a lot of work, and we can talk a little bit about sort of the kinds of topics we want to cover in there. But before we do that, I wanted to, again, are we okay with us keeping this paragraph as is? Should I not worry about it anymore?
And just one question in this context, when we speak about reverse proxy, is it about minimizing the exposure of sensitive or controlling or somehow containing? Because it can be absolutely maybe you kind of expose it to some third party fully. It's not minimal, but it's in a controlled fashion.
Well, this
Or
is where we're talking about full versus partial, right? So you may need to, in fact, so I'm teeing it up to basically say, look, you'll need to decide how much your reverse proxy C is based on your particular situation.
yeah, so I get it. So that's why I'm thinking, like, is it because it's not always about like minimal, it's about controlling how much and having this choice. So could we change it to, instead of minimize, to control or contain or some other better word?
To
Steer.
control.
Yeah, control. Yeah. Okay, yeah, now I'm having.
Okay, so cool. Then we're just gonna keep it. So solution. Okay, there is a lot to be said here. This is not a complete section, right? So we'll probably come back to it in a couple of weeks, but I wanted to, sort of set the stage for what are the things that we should, let's just create a bullet point of things. I know. Maintain logs of decisions made. Maintain logs of policies in effect at any given time.
Yeah, I mean, just toss out a couple of use cases for us to think about next time too, if you don't mind. I mean, one of the things that we've been talking about, like for example, one of the problems that we have with Azure Front Door is customers who want to eliminate the reverse proxy. We can help them, but now all of a sudden they're freaking fully susceptible to the ravages of, dictionary password brute force attacks, right? And most customers aren't ready for that. So they really want confidentiality, and we give it to them, and then all their accounts get hacked because they don't know how to fight, those kinds of attacks. So I think maybe putting some use cases out there about the benefits of WAF, the benefits of break and inspect, so that customers understand that when they engage confidential computing as a solution, that that shared responsibility model goes away and they're solely responsible for those
Yeah.
kinds of attacks. And then
It may be the case that we need to specify different roles that reverse proxy may perform, and specify role specific requirements. So if you're doing TLS termination, like this is what you're responsible for. And by the way, make sure to re-encrypt the data on the back end because your CSP is still not trusted, like things like that. If you're doing web application firewall functionality, this is what you might be doing. And then just go down the list. I mean, that's what I'm saying. This section is not fully not even close to complete. I'm very glad we cleaned up all of this. This is good. Right?
so I think use cases, like let's identify some use cases that we want to address in this paper. And we've all got them in our heads, but I think we need to write them down. So I just suggested a couple. So maybe you can say, maybe you can
I
just,
would say, turn on suggestion mode and just start throwing spaghetti at the wall, and then we'll come back in a couple of weeks and clean it all up.
use cases. By the way, let me just say this because we've only got 4 minutes. WAF
Yeah.
platform CSP can provide protection for password dictionary attacks and WAF attacks. If you disable, break, and inspect, you need to assume responsibility.
Yeah. All right. So we'll come back to this in a couple of weeks. In the next 2 weeks, take some time, author some content, because in these meetings we should be mostly reviewing content, not authoring
Okay.
it. And I will add, I will create a meeting minutes document, that will be a little bit more diligent.
Yeah.
Keeping
And
track of all our decisions.
I
Right.
heard, Mark, let me just say real quick. The role that I've been assuming at Microsoft has gradually been expanded, right? Since I joined the CCC, it's been 3 years now, and it just got expanded again yesterday. So the amount of time that I've had, you guys have seen it decline a little bit. I'm sorry about that. It was ad hoc. It wasn't intentional. This one was intentional. So now I'm going to have a team of folks that I'm going to have to be responsible for. The bad news is that probably am not going to be able to participate as much personally. The good news is I'll have some folks that I can direct to participate, and you'll have more of their time. So that'll be good, and I'll be in the background. Also, I'm going to be on vacation, and I got family business, and I'll be out of the country in Spain for a couple of weeks. I'll be back at the beginning of May.
Yeah.
And I will re-engage with you folks, and we'll figure out a transition.
Right. I also wanted to put a request out. Thanks for that, Alec. So I now chair 2 SIGs here, and that's like more than anybody else in the consortium. When you're chairing something, you're in this implied position of authority, which also means that I don't actually get a lot of feedback. So if you want to drop me a note with any suggestions for how I can do things better, I don't care for praise much, but I do want to hear how to improve effectiveness, anything that my blind spots or whatever that is. Please do let me know, because I do not want to stew in my own juice and assume everything's fine.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you so much, and I will see you guys in a couple of weeks in this forum.
And
Thank you, everyone.
I did take notes today, Mark. So there you go.
Oh, you
Great.
did. Fantastic.
We're improving.
Thank you, Alec. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.